I need to talk about ego and ego's place in a courtroom. The long short of it is ego doesn't have a place in the courtroom. It doesn't. Ego will get people locked up. Ego will get extra charges at it. Ego will get sentences increased. In a courtroom, ego, your ego, can hurt you. Now, this ain't just for people dealing with cases, right? I'm speaking to myself. I'm speaking to other attorneys. I'm speaking to judges. I'm speaking to everybody who interacts in a courtroom. But I think the most important audience are the uninitiated. The people who come to court because they got arrested or they're not that familiar with court. They're just in there for a little bit. They're there supporting a family member. They don't know, right? They're not there every day. This is not where they live. So I was in court the other day and bailiff asked this young man, bailiff was white, young man was black. He was getting in line for court to come into the actual courtroom. And bailiff told him to tuck in his shirt. If you don't know, it's very common that when you walk into a courtroom, they want you to tuck in your shirt. So if you have court, safe bet, just go in there with a tucked in shirt. And the young man didn't respond quick enough, right? Initially, he didn't want to do it. Then he started to do it, but it was too late because the bailiff had already gave him a couple chances to do it. So the bailiff was frustrated with him. So he put him in handcuffs and put him into the holdover jail, the holdover cell, which is kind of like the jail within the courtroom. And this dude almost had extra charges filed against him. He easily could have. The officer could have tried to articulate that the dude fought back and now it's assault against a peace officer. You're there for one case and you leave with two. Now, do I personally agree with the bailiff putting him in handcuffs? No. Do I wish the bailiff would have had more patience with this guy? I do. But that's not the reality, right? That's not the world we live in. I understand as a criminal defense attorney, I understand as a public defender that this whole court process is frustrating. I understand as a black man that the young man didn't like how the bailiff was talking to him. He didn't like the tone he said it to him. But at the same time, your goal is to walk into court and get out of court. And in that moment, that frustration, the ego involved there almost got him another charge. Almost got him another charge. I don't think that bailiff ended up filing another charge on it. So I'm glad that it didn't happen. But he was admonished in front of the judge. And now the judge might remember who this young man is. And in my experience, it's never good if the judge remembers you in that way. Right? So I wish him the best. But I don't know. You know? That same day, I was helping a client in court and we were going through, he was getting some information that he has to receive from the judge. And he was ready to go. He was ready to go because he had been there a while. And he was waiting on the department to show up, the pretrial department to show up. And he was frustrated. He was frustrated. And he wanted to leave. And I think this young man might have some like ADD development issues as well. And so that tied in with everything. He had been sitting in jail for 2 days. Now he was out, but now he had been sitting in court for about 4 hours. But he couldn't leave till he got this information from the judge that he was waiting on the other department to bring him. He was so frustrated. He was so frustrated. He was brought in front of the judge because it was found out he was making a ruckus. And I'm sitting there praying that, hoping the judge doesn't throw him in jail. Because I know. I live here. I know what could happen. And it was this close. The judge almost threw him back in jail. Just because his attitude. Just because of his attitude. And on top of it, he didn't like how the judge was talking to him. It was hard for him. It was hard. These two people I talk about aren't unique, right? It's the average person. It's a human thing we deal with. But what I need people to understand is when you walk inside of that courtroom, just try to put your ego to the side. Your goal is to get in and get out. It might take a while, but you want to be able to walk out of that courtroom. And your attitudes, your demeanor, your reactions to things, all could affect whether or not that happens. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm not acting like it's an easy thing to do. But just humble yourself for that time in which you're in court. Just humble yourself. Humble yourself. Because if you don't, bad things could happen. That just complicates your situation. I've seen it over and over again. You got to humble yourself. Put your ego to the side. It's not easy. But you got to do it. You got to do it. Please, I'm asking. Put it to the side.